I want you to take a moment and think about your favorite character from a movie, TV show, or a book. I'll give you about 5 seconds. Got it in your mind? A little dirty secret about me is that I love movies and TV shows. Really, I like the characters in the shows. If you know this about me, I tend to listen to podcasts about the shows. I will literally only watch a movie or a show if there's an accompanying podcast. So I like to talk to my friends about the characters and see how they evolved. And a theme that emerged is that the characters that had the most growth were usually the most loved. And the TV shows and the movies that were not really critically acclaimed usually had characters that stayed relatively flat. For example, Nicolas Cage in National Treasure, or Nicolas Cage in pretty much any movies in the 90s. We enjoyed watching him hunt for treasure and put together these clues, but at the end of the day, he was pretty much the same character. In the same boat, John Wick. Any John Wick fans here? Yeah. So he had some tragedy before the show started, but we pretty much watched 3 movies of him avenging his dog and just slaughtering mass people. He was the same person throughout the whole series. And for our elder millennials, Ferris Bueller. He had an amazing day off, but at the end of the show, he was pretty much still just Ferris. He didn't learn anything. But when we think about the characters that really grew and transformed, those are the ones that we love. A few of my personal favorites, and spoiler alert, Sansa Stark from Game of Thrones. Sansa started off as a bratty, entitled child. She just wanted to marry her prince and eat pumpkin cakes and all these things. But her life sent her through all these different tragedies and traumas where she could have just succumbed at the end of the day. But she decided to stand in her own power, and in the end became the Queen of the North. Similarly, Tony Stark. Now, I hated Iron Man in the beginning. I'm like, okay, you're a billionaire, you got money, but you're cocky. You didn't learn anything. You were so irresponsible. But we watched him throughout his Avengers journey really learn responsibility, care for his fellow teammates. And in the end, he became a global hero that laid down his life in Endgame. Yeah. And my personal favorites, the Rose family from Schitt's Creek. This family, again, billionaires that lost it all and had to move to this little town. They had no redeeming qualities whatsoever. But through the course of the show, we began to see them learn who they were, connect with each other, really develop. And by season 6, they were a part of your family. You were rooting for David and Alexis. It's like, yes, y'all won, you learned, you transformed. So we get inspired by these characters. But we don't really take that inspiration with us. What we don't have is a team of writers in a room of masterful storytellers crafting our whole arcs. Most of the time, we just kind of have us. And change is hard when you really start trying to do it the right way. Now, New Year's resolutions come and we all get gung-ho about, you know what, I'm gonna change X, Y, and Z, and then by January 3rd, we're still back on the couch watching Netflix. Guilty. I started to fall in love with the personal development and growth journey kind of by accident. My life was a little bit like Sansa Stark's. It was going perfectly, storybook, I had it planned to a T. But then life was lifing. And it began to twist and turn. I had so many choices along the way of like, who do you want to be right now, Renita? If you would have met me 10 years ago, I was a version of myself. I was a bit more in the box, polished, muted. But if you see me now, you would think, well, who waved a magic wand over you? And that led me to one of the dimensions of my life where I'm an executive coach. I focus on authenticity. I help myself and my clients, supporting them between the leap for who they are to who they want to be. And as I was coming up with this TED Talk and thinking about the theme, inked, I began to think, okay, inked, I want to talk about transformation, maybe I can do the butterfly, but that's a little bit overdone. But then my mad scientist mind kicked in, and I'm going to invite you into my mind mapping here. Inked as in a tattoo. If we think about our personalities, they're kind of like tattoos. They're seemingly permanent, crafted by our belief systems, our values, our essences, our environments, and we think that we're stuck with what we are. But what happens when you have a bad tattoo? You all might have a friend or two where you're like, oh, you got that. That's delightful. But we think we're stuck with it. So then I saw, okay, inked, tattoo, bad tattoos. What do you do with that? You take it to an artist that can transform it. And in that began to come through all these different facets of transformation. So today we're going to walk through 5 facets of personal transformation. I will make a disclaimer here now. This is not a linear process. This is just a taste of the elements of what you can begin to do to transform your life. I've seen this both in my life, my clients, my friends, my mentors. So go on the journey with me. First off, become a creator. To understand what it means to be a creator, we have to understand what it means to be a victim. There are times when we stand in a place of victimhood where the life is happening to us. We're being afflicted, where it's like, I don't have anywhere else to go. I'm stuck. And I want to make a very important clarification between victimization and victimhood. We've all been victimized in some kind of way, whether it's through systemic oppression, someone cutting us off on the highway, childhood traumas. We all have been a victim of something. But victimhood is a mindset we can get stuck in that causes us to be stuck, not really realizing the choices that we have. To be in a creator mindset means to be at choice. What I want to do with my life right now? What choices are in front of me? In 2003, I started my management consulting journey. I was a fresh graduate from the University of Texas at Austin, and I joined Accenture. Now, back in the day, a consultant had a very polished demeanor. You had rules to look like an Accenture consultant. So I began to mold myself into that. In my other hand, I had rules of what it meant to be a black woman in corporate America. You got to work twice as hard, don't be too loud, don't be too angry, stay below the curve, just do what you're supposed to do. So over 10 years, I had crafted myself into a well-polished prison with all of these restrictions around me. And I remember one time in 2013, 10 years later, it was summertime and I wanted to get braids. Now, throughout this whole journey, before we had the real true natural hair movement, that wasn't a thing you really did in corporate. And I remember calling my girlfriends. We had like a whole Congress call here of like, hey, I want to get braids, but if I do and show up to work the next day, are they going to fire me? Am I going to get kicked off a corporate client? Am I going to be deemed as professional? All of these different questions began to come up for me. And I realized that I was standing in my victimhood there, and that was a choice I needed to make. Am I going to allow these things to happen to me and be a muted version of myself, or make some choices to start living my life a bit bigger and begin to start the journey of who I wanted to be as a professional? So I got the braids, walked in, next day, Renita, your hair is so cute. Yes, I didn't get fired. Thank you. Thank you. But then that one choice started leading to all these other small choices where I began to get control of my life and who I wanted to be. And the pale version of myself began to get this very vibrant, who you see standing here right now. Next up, go bigger. Add some color to your life. Sometimes you're working with something that's okay, it's not horrible, but you can zhuzh it up. Add a little je ne sais to the quoi, I like to say. Now with this, sometimes we want to take on different traits. We want to try new things, and we think, okay, if I start this, I got to stick with it. It's going to be permanent, so I'm not going to start because I'm not going to stick with it, so no. But each one of you probably have something where it's like, I want to try this. I want to try knitting. I want to try painting, but it's going to be too hard. I was in a leadership program a few years ago, and as you've noticed, I'm a bit quirky and, sarcastic and witty. And there was the owner of a local Dallas comedy club that was in the class with us. And she said, Renita, you should probably take an improv class. I said, well, there's a big difference from being witty here than on a whole stage. It's too much. But then one day I had a little bit of probably liquid courage in me, and I signed up for the improv class. And through that journey, I learned how to play, have fun, be in the moment, and I actually liked being on stage. But if I hadn't done that, I wouldn't have learned that part of myself. And that began to unfold, and now here I am on a big old red dot in front of you, just from that one decision of an experiment. I will give you the antithesis of that, though. When I was about 38 years old, I decided to try roller derby. I'm gonna let that sit with you just for a little bit. I didn't know how to skate. And I thought, we said, 6-week class, they'll teach you how to skate. Cool. I bought my gear, I had my knee pads, I had my name, I was ready. I spent 6 weeks skating in a corner because I didn't know how to skate at all. And to other people, they would say, Renita, you failed there. And I did, miserably. But it taught me that you can fail and still have fun. You can have some adventures here and there. And most of all, it made for some pretty cool stories. So with that, figure out what you can experiment with your life. Take that class. Just do a piece of that thing and see what it'll unfold for you. It'll make you interesting. This one's my favorite. The best example of turning a flaw into a feature is Lizzo. I will step into a moment of confessional. I was not a Lizzo fan when she originally came out. Right? I thought, you're being too much, sis. Why are you all up there with all this and it's out and it's a lot. It's a lot. But I had to realize that my hating ways were because of my own body positivity issues that I had for myself. She is someone that does not comply to traditional beauty standards in the music industry, but she turned that perceived flaw into a feature in her life. And people love her because she celebrates being who you are. In the same vein, dad bods were the thing for probably the past few years. But lately, people have morphed from like, you know what, Chris Hemsworth? Give me someone who's like soft, cuddly with emotional intelligence. That flaw is now a feature. In my own life, I'm a bit neurodivergent, neurospicy, I like to call it. And I have had many times sitting in my therapist, like, I just want to be normal. I just want to think a certain way. I don't want to like be just all spastic in my mind and kind of flaky, bouncing from thing to thing to thing. But I talked to my best friend one day, and she's like, Rita, that actually makes you kind of brilliant. It makes you cool because you're trying new things. So I leaned into that part of my life of, you know what, I'm gonna be spastic. And the more spastic I was and the more flaky I was and bopped around and things, the more people liked it. I'm like, oh, so I can just be me? So that flaw that I was trying to bury for so long became one of my most shining qualities. Now, on the converse of this, sometimes you just gotta change something. Now, I'm sure when they got this tattoo, it was supposed to be a beautiful tribute to this child. In the hands of that artist, it became a creepy zombie child. And I can see that that person was probably like, I can stick with this, but it ain't giving what it needs to give. So I'm gonna have to cover this up, take it to somebody who can handle it and just completely transform it. At times when I'm either talking to my clients or sometimes talking to myself in the mirror, you hear yourself complaining. Oh, I hate this about myself. Why can't I be like this? Da, da, da. What do you want to do? Are you gonna change it? Is it still serving you? Sometimes the rubber has to really meet the road, and you begin to transform and take those small steps to be able to move past the things that are holding you back from the vision, the purpose that you have for your life. But you just have to start trying. Now, there's been a thread that has come through this whole talk. It's been a bit of a hidden thread. Each of these images was put into the hands of a capable, talented artist. These people didn't tattoo themselves. They had help. So through your personal transformation journey, you don't have to do this alone. We've come into this culture of, I want to thank me for doing this for me. I did it all alone. No, there is a village around us at any given time. Since I'm talking about tattoos, I'll tell you about my own tattoo story. In 2020, my partner at the time had gotten this beautiful tattoo, and I was just like fangirling over it. Oh my God, so gorgeous, so gorgeous. I wish I could have a tattoo one day. And I think she kind of got tired of me just wishing on it. She's like, well, if you want to do it, then just go do it. But all that victimhood started coming in, and I was like, well, wait, if I get a tattoo, am I gonna get fired? I just came out late in life, and if I do get a tattoo now, that might put my mom over the edge. That's a little bit too much change in a short amount of time. But we found ourselves in Denver one day, and we had some time, and we're like, you know what, let's go find a tattoo parlor. And I remember calling her and preparing for this talk, and I was like, I was like bold and daring in Denver, right? Like I went out to the tattoo and I got it. She's like, child, you were kicking and screaming the whole way in the car. I had to keep talking you into it, reminding you of why you wanted to do it. And those are the moments that we have help in our life. Because if she wasn't there with me, I wouldn't have laid my arm on this tattoo stand in Denver and got my first tattoo. This has been my most favorite thing, and it reminds me each day to be authentic. It's my own ink on my life. So with all this, we may think that our personalities, that we're stuck with it, we're stained by it, but we're not. You can transform it, you can cover it, you can make it bigger, you can add more color. And I'll leave you with this. My dear, dear therapist, who I should pay a lot more money to, I was talking to her one day and I was like, why is my life just, I keep changing and evolving. It's always something. I just want to sit still, like let life pause. There's a lot of change, sis. And she looked at me and she said, Renita, the beauty of you is your messiness. And I sat with that of like, yes, my life has been messy, but it's been beautiful. Change has been hard, it's been uncomfortable, but it's evolved. So I challenge you today. Fall into your change. Embrace it. Let it unfold, let it come, but just let it be. Thank you for coming to my TED.